I wanted to get Dr. Doug Rocky on, and I appreciate him coming on so quick because we've seen this precedent set where 20 years ago, and even back to the 40s, the Pentagon said DU is deadly poisonous and radioactive and should only be used if the Soviets pour across in an invasion of Western Europe, because after a nuclear war has already started, you know, it's going to kill the troops down the line, but that's just what we're going to have to do. But starting in the Gulf War, they said, we'll use it in limited areas and try to clean it up. Then it killed and maimed most of those that cleaned it up. And now they just say, use it at proving grounds, use it everywhere. We've had troops calling in, confirming. They don't even tell them. You know, the cases say wear gloves. They don't tell you when they fire it out of a gun. It's now in hundreds of different types of munitions, or a big gun that some of it, you know, gets on the troops. They don't tell you that when it hits a target, it aerosolizes, turns into particles, then you breathe it. And this just goes to the fact that now they're rolling out 500 mobile X-ray vans that had checkpoints in Atlanta that we reported on, that our report now on the Christian Science Monitor, Yahoo News, AOL News. We're making this a national debate. It shows that there's been a major change. Now they just don't care. You know, we're going to let guys unshielded in vans fire. We've had a radiologist, an engineer radiologist who designed these systems, you know, and looked at the specs of these very units, at least 10 times the radiation of a chest X-ray. And it shoots through your walls and shows crisp images and shoots through cars. They're just driving around doing this, and they're not even wearing radiation badges. They're not even top scientists are all over the news saying 20 to 50 times the radiation they'd previously said with the backscatter systems at the airports. Now going into mobile vans, they force you through to get into sporting events. It's on the news. You're going to walk through them. I mean, they want them in shopping malls, the FBI says, and then you pay for this with taxpayers. This is a good deal, not just nuclear submarines and Polaris missiles and aircraft carriers and drones. Now you get to pay the military-industrial complex for this. So I wanted to get Dr. Doug Rocky, who has a degree in different forms of radiation, to talk about DU, to talk about how they're just radiating everyone all over the place now, and the mindset of not caring. Let me read to you his lengthy bio. Dr. Doug Rocky is a depleted uranium expert. He earned his B.S. in physics at Western Illinois University, followed by his M.S. and Ph.D. in physics and technology education at the University of Illinois. His military career spanned 4 decades to include combat duty during the Vietnam War and Gulf War I. Doug served as a member of the 3rd U.S. Army Medical Command's Nuclear, Biological, Chemical, MBC, Teaching, Medical Response, and Special Operations Team, 3rd U.S. Army Captured Equipment Project Team, and with the 3rd U.S. Army Depleted Uranium Assessment Team during Desert War I, Operation Desert Storm. And he wrote then in the official book on it, on DU. He literally wrote, we got the guy who wrote the book for you. Because now troops are calling me going, they say there's no problem. We can bomb an area and go right into it. They say DU's no problem. And they're just using it everywhere now. He was the U.S. Army's Depleted Uranium Project Director from 94 to 95, the Army's director of the program. He developed the congressionally mandated education training materials that aren't given to anyone now, and wrote the U.S. Army Regulation 700-48. Just like there's regulations on radiation, on radiology equipment, X-ray machines, the government doesn't have to follow it. And they call in TSA workers now. We've confirmed this. We've had callers tell us, but I've confirmed it separately, and are asking them, do you have a problem with these? Are you worried about them? You worried about radiation? Yeah, I'm worried. Okay, you're let go. We'll find an idiot that'll do it. He wrote the U.S. Army Regulation 700-48, U.S. Army PAM 700-48, and U.S. Army's Common Task for DU Incidents. Doug has taught nuclear, biological, chemical warfare, hazardous materials, emergency medicine for 20 years in both civil and military personnel. Dr. Doug Rocky was the original author of the 1982 EDRT, Emergency Disaster Response Assistance Team proposal, which formed the formation of the today's National Guard CSD teams and the Illinois CERT teams. In preparation for the 96 Atlanta Olympics, he wrote and taught the original chemical, biological, counterterrorism course for the civilian emergency responders that is now the federal 120 cities and Department of Justice course that served as the emergency response team location at Birmingham, Alabama. He joins us now, and he's been affected in bad health, and a lot of his team has died, by the way, just from the cleanup at the Road of Death in 1991 outside Kuwait, there on the Iraq border. And he's still hanging on in a bull. And Dr. Doug Rocky, good to have you here with us, sir.
Well, thank you very much, sir. You make me sound some kind of like, hey, I'm just a guy with blue jeans and tennis shoes.
Yeah, but, I mean, you are one of the leading experts on DU in the world. You ran the Army program.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that was part of my tasking. And, you know, when we used this during Desert Storm, there were no preparations or anything put in place for medical care or environmental cleanup. And all of a sudden, General Schwarzkopf sent an order down to the 3rd Medical Command Commander, D.G. Zulis, and said, hey, find Doug Rocky. You know, the Pentagon said he's the guy to do it, and have him clean up the mess and do decon and set up the medical care. And Lord Almighty, it's now been, 20 years.
Talk about what it's done to you personally and what happened to your team.
Oh, boy. Well, yeah, I mean, within 24 hours of the initial assignment, we all started coming down with respiratory problems and rashes. The first cancers on the team happened within 6 to 9 months afterwards. The first deaths on the team were within 2 years. You'll see a lot of people in the Department of Defense, they'll say, no, it didn't happen. There's individuals out there today that try to stop all this information from getting out. They say it didn't happen, we weren't there. Well, we were there. The photographs, the video all prove it. You know, one of the things that was real interesting in 1998, Bill Clinton's Secretary of Defense staff, they all briefed him, all right? And they flat out told him, 8 years after the fact, they hadn't even notified anybody or set up medical care. So it goes on and on and on and on.
And you wrote the book on what it does, but, I mean, tell us what it did to you personally.
Well, what first happened, we got the rash and the respiratory stuff. Within 2 to 3 years, as I'm going back on active duty as the director of the U.S. Army Depleted Uranium Project to write the training, the regulations, and our procedures. The kidney problems are already there. Had probably 20 kidney surgeries. That's what the
troops keep telling me. It messes up their kidneys and urinary tract. How many surgeries do you have, sir?
About 20.
20? Okay, please continue.
And then we had all the respiratory problems, calcified granulomas in the lungs, the radiation cataracts. I've already had the eye surgery in the left eye, and they're trying to postpone the eye surgery in the right eye because the surgery is just a nightmare, and it takes months and months of recovery, and it's so dangerous. Thing we've had happen, and again, I had more phone calls and emails on it again in the last 48 hours, is because of decalcification and dephosphorization of the bones in the teeth. You fracture bones all over the place, and then your teeth just literally, they disintegrate and fall out, and so my teeth are gone. And then, obviously, you have all the other neurological problems, the neuromuscular problems, and we're seeing hundreds of thousands of U.S. military, totally confirmed by the Department of Veteran Affairs with all the same problems. I mean, it has just turned into a complete nightmare. Members of my team developed cancer and died. We had a friendly fire guy, absolute friendly fire, Desert Storm 1 in a Bradley fighting vehicle. They're still, to this day, I got the message from him on the other day, okay? And he still was denied medical care after 20 years. 20 years that he was in a Bradley fighting vehicle where an Abrams gunner shot it up with a 120-millimeter DU round. He still can't get medical care. And then the widows of my guys that have died, they've just all but abandoned them.
And now we just got numbers by the British Medical Journal and others, 14 times the regular cancer rate in Fallujah, 3 to 4 times in the troops that fought there. I mean, that is a nuclear war zone. And now they've gone from admitting DU's bad to just saying, everybody, have a party. It's fun.
Well, that was part of the thing, because what was really crazy, in March of 1991, as I got this assigned to do all this stuff, I was given 2 memorandum, and you've seen these memorandum before. One was called the Los Alamos Memorandum. The other one was sent, and that was written by Colonel Michael Zine from Los Alamos, New Mexico, the major labs there. And the other one was written by Colonel Greg Lyle from the Defense Nuclear Agency. These are the #1 bomb guys, okay? You don't get any higher than these. These are the experts. And in the Defense Nuclear Agency, it warned about all the serious health hazards, all the risks of political ramifications, the fact that we would deliberately contaminate air, water, and soil, leaving that contamination for eternity and can't be cleaned up. But then in the Los Alamos memo was a direct order to rely on our reports to sustain the use of uranium munitions by maintaining active proponency. And then in December of 1992, we started the U.S. Army Environmental Policy Institute study on depleted uranium, and that was co-located here at the University of Illinois in the U.S. Army Serial Labs. That's their main Army research lab. And in that directive from December 1992, said, well, do the study, guys. We know it's a health hazard. We can't clean it up. There's nothing we can do about the medical or environmental effects, but, hey, we're always going to use it. And it's been going on that way ever since.
And now they've got proving grounds. Before it was, 10? Now it's hundreds. They're using it in Hawaii, Puerto Rico, Texas, near small towns. They're just, in fact, I've been talking to armorers and others. They now serve it out to the troops and don't even tell them it's DU.
Well, one of the most interesting things about that, it's all over. We've got Kansas City as a mess. We've got up in all around New York, around the Falls, Niagara Falls, that whole area is a mess. We've got Puerto Rico is a mess. We've got England, Florida is a mess. The contamination is definitely out there in the Gulf. Now, what's been stirred up with all this current nightmare, I don't know. Hawaii has turned into a total mess, and the Army simply refuses to clean up Hawaii, even though they acknowledge it's there, even though the medical effects are known, they simply refuse to clean it up. And then the Nuclear Regulatory Commission just goes ahead and backs them up all the way. We have to understand, we have to get rid of the byproduct of our nuclear energy system, okay? So 99% of everything that goes into the system at Paducah, Kentucky, Oak Ridge, and Fort Smith, Ohio, to make reactor fuel or bomb stuff is pure waste. That's uranium hexafluoride. 99% by mass is pure waste. Well, what we do then, we turn it into concrete, we turn it into DU munitions, we turn it into forklift truck weights, we turn it into cooking pots, and even golf club heads. It's really neat.
Now, excuse me, I've read some of this, but they're now putting this in regular products.
Oh, absolutely, because of the incredibly high density. If you think about a golf club head, what you want is incredible high density to hit that ball and drive that ball a long ways. So they do that. And then the forklift trucks, you need incredibly high density. So you have a small volume but extremely high weight. So it's used in the back. And then for concrete, it's called DU-crete. You can buy it at the lumberyard. And again, what it does is strengthens and reinforces the concrete. You don't have to put the rebar in it because it's already got the metal in it.
So that's actually true. This is sold at Home Depot.
Probably a different. I've never gone into Home Depot to buy it, but it's definitely sold on the market. You can get it and it's work with it. So we have all of this stuff, but then we continuously use these munitions because they're incredibly effective.
Yeah, but let's first talk about the half-life of DU.
Well, it's billions and billions of years. Forget it. We have the radiological part of it, okay? And, we're looking at billions and billions of years to reduce even one half-life. Now, when this stuff is laying outside on the ground, it's not a real hazard, but once it gets in the body, the alpha, beta, and gamma emissions literally tear up the body and rip up the body because they're in direct contact, and now you have incredible radiological damage once it's inhaled, ingested, absorbed, or anything.
Well, by the way, Doc, we did pull it up. It's 4.5 billion years.
Isn't that wonderful?
And this shows the mindset of these people. They want a carbon tax on carbon dioxide that plants breathe, but they're not worried about DU everywhere.
One of the crazy things is, in preparation for Desert Storm, Colonel J. Edgar Wakayama, who is the director of the Operational Test and Evaluation Command for the whole Department of Defense, okay?